Hello and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers. This is episode 26 on ebayscavengers.com, and this is Ryan and Jay.
That's right.
And we are interviewing my mom, who is also a longtime eBay seller. Hello, Mom.
Hey, guys.
Yep, and so we just wanted to talk today about, we're relatively young. I guess I'm not getting that young
you
anymore.
just had a birthday, so.
But, we just wanted to talk to you, Jenna, about your history with eBay, since you've been kind of selling and fooling around with eBay since kind of the beginning, and I know technology has changed a lot. So, and also what's interesting is that Ryan actually learned how to eBay from you when she was helping you. So maybe you could just talk about how you guys got started.
Oh, sure. Well, I had a long history of doing yard sales with friends of mine, and we always had great yard sales. And a woman came to the yard sale one day who was a really early eBay user and a friend of ours. And I'd heard of eBay, but, didn't mean much to me. And she said, "Oh, your stuff is way too good to be selling in a yard sale. You need to get on eBay." And I thought, well, that sounds cool. And I had a computer, but, without a little bit of help in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, well, come over to my house, bring a bottle of wine. I'll teach you everything you need to know.
When was that? Like, what year was that?
I want to say that was like 99, maybe.
Yeah, that was, I think it was 99, because that's when I started my eBay account. It says September of 99.
How old were you back then? You were like
99? I was 19.
You were in college, right?
Yeah, I was 19.
Don't ask me how old I was then.
We aren't gonna...
So I went over to this friend's house. Her name is Norma, and basically in 4 hours, she gave me kind of the basics. And, keep in mind, all I had ever done up to that point was send an email. I mean, computers were really primitive back then.
Right.
And I think I might have had one of the first little iMacs at that point. With, a total of 8 megabytes,
right.
memory or something. It was like, whoa,
right.
Look at all this memory. So at that point, I still, I thought, well, this is cool. But my friend Trish, who lived next door to me, we used to go dumpster diving, I guess.
Yeah.
I went to her house a couple of days later, and I said, let's put something on eBay. And she's like, oh, what are we going to put on eBay? I said, I don't know. Let's just find something.
Yep.
So she had picked up in a little paper trash bag 2 old lunch boxes. And I said, well, these are kind of cool. Maybe we should put these up. And she's like, okay. So one of them was an Annie Oakley. I'll never forget this because this kind of launched my eBay career.
Right.
It was an Annie Oakley lunchbox from the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And it was dented, it was rusted, it didn't have a thermos. I knew nothing. But I did do a little research. I found out that there was a category for not only lunchboxes, but collectibles from TV series. And I figured out enough to put it in 2 separate categories. I thought I was pretty sophisticated. And I put it up for $4.99 because I thought, well, we got it for free. And if I make $5, that'd be awesome. And at that time, there was nothing but auctions.
Right.
There were no it was really simple. Everything was auctioned. People were starting all their auctions at somewhere between 99 cents and $10. That was about it. Well, the first couple of days, it went up to like $12. And we were over the moon. We were ecstatic. We thought, this is the greatest thing ever. The lunchbox topped out at the end of the auction over $50
Wow.
to some guy in Oklahoma. And I went over to Trish's house and I said, this is amazing.
Yep.
We have to do this.
Yep,
Yeah.
just free money, right?
Right.
Just,
It was like we found this in a bag on the ground.
Right. Now let's talk about, so how did Orion get involved with this? What were you doing?
I think I was like, well, first of all, I had friends in college because eBay was new. I think eBay started in like 96, 97. So,
Yeah.
it was still relatively new. So some friends of mine were doing like crazy collectibles on eBay. Like they were buying stuff and they were selling like records and, because I went to art school. So it was like records, film cameras and, old stereos. Like that's the stuff we were into. So we were finding that stuff to buy on eBay, but I think I was trying it out at the same time as you and like trying to sell old stereos and stuff.
Yeah, I remember you were selling stereo tuners and turntables and speakers and really hard stuff to ship.
I know. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, I would never buy that stuff now.
Right.
But yeah, and I think also my part of it too, because eBay at that time didn't have photo hosting.
Right.
Which is still actually relatively new for them. So I think I taught you how to use FTP to put stuff on a cheap server to put your photos.
Oh, I know what it was. See, back then there weren't even any other email services other than AOL.
Right, we had AOL. That's right.
We had AOL,
oh my God, it's like dial-up.
We had AOL. We had dial-up, and you could host a limited amount of photos on AOL. But once you got above a certain amount, you couldn't host anymore. So if you kept, and the other thing was you had to keep relisting stuff. I mean, every week you had to relist all your stuff.
Right.
So it was incredibly labor intensive, and AOL would lose the connection. So you would be listing an item with a really lengthy description, and then bang, your AOL connection would go down and you'd have to start all over again. So you had to really be diligent and dedicated to even get a listing up at any given time.
Now what's interesting though is that you then, you've been selling on eBay off and on for all this time, but you actually opened like a antique store, or like
an actual retail
like a
store.
brick and mortar store. And I guess you could maybe briefly talk about that experience and why you did that. And
well, I had a lot of physical, what I call hard goods. I had furniture and artwork and large things that I had no intention of putting on eBay ever. And my job as a art gallery director ended rather suddenly, and I already had an antique booth going at an antique mall. Right. So I thought, well, I'll just segue into a bigger space. Right. And they offered me a store space, and there are a lot of details that went into that, but eventually I ended up with almost 2,000 square feet of my own space. And I've always been doing the eBay on the side, and I thought, I opened the retail store. And when the economy started to get really slow again, I thought, well, I'm just going to beef up sales. I'll do eBay on the side, and I'll do it while the store's open. I'll section off part of the store and I'll work in the back, and which was difficult because you're constantly being interrupted. But my eBay sales were taking off like crazy. And stuff that had languished on my store shelves for months at super low prices were selling like crazy on eBay for triple what I was asking for in the store. I've been in retail pretty much all my life. I mean, I had 15 years on the art show circuit. I've managed other people's stores. I've managed other people's art galleries. So I have an extensive retail background. But when you look at eBay compared to running a brick and mortar store, if you have the space to store your inventory, that's key. Right. You kind of keep it to things that you can ship. There's just no reason to have a brick and mortar store anymore, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, people are still going to want to go to stores and look at stuff and touch stuff. But from my perspective, I was so burned out on the whole retail, having to be at the store during certain hours.
Yeah, having to go there is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, because I'm not a morning person, so I was never there before 11.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just, eventually I just hated being tied to that.
So you were kind of like in an antique mall, and I'm sure we've all been to those places where everyone has like a booth. Right. I've always wondered, like why, people have such cool stuff. Like why aren't they selling on eBay? Like, is it the technology?
There's definitely an attitude among what I call, kind of the old school dealers, the people who actually are my age, who've been doing this for 20 or 30 years, and they've been antique dealers and flea market dealers for years. And they've got this like almost visceral, dislike of eBay, and they make remarks like, "Oh, eBay's killing the antique business," it's
which is hilarious. Really? And what's funny to me is they base a lot of their prices off of eBay. So
exactly.
They'll print out an eBay thing. This is worth $500.
Right. I can't tell you how many people in my circle of antique dealer friends who either don't own a computer or own a computer and don't know how to use it, don't want to learn how to use it. The technology is really off-putting to them.
Right.
And I think for a lot of them, that's a big barrier, is just learning the technology.
I mean, I've got one other hypothesis too, and that's that I wonder if a lot of these people just love to deal in cash.
Yes. Yes. They
don't
realize that that's not an option on eBay.
Right. Like they just want to,
They also have a distrust, I think, of the system. Like, I don't want to be on PayPal. I don't want people. It's just, and the other thing that I find amazing, and there's this one dealer in particular that I will not name because we all know him, but he has a very successful house clean out business, and he comes across the most amazing things.
Right.
He also has a very successful eBay site. He does not have an eBay store. He puts everything up for auction. He rarely has more than 20 items at a time up. I follow him very closely, but I will run into him at the post office, and he has hand addressed every single box. And he is physically carrying it to the post office and standing in line and buying delivery confirmation tag. And I'm thinking to myself, you are so smart, and you have all this wonderful product that you're getting amazing prices for, and you're hand addressing every single item. Like, what's wrong with you? Don't you own a printer?
Yeah.
And we all follow him because the few things he does sell, he sells for a lot of money.
Thousands of dollars.
Hundreds
sometimes.
And thousands of dollars, yeah.
Yeah, hundreds and thousands of dollars. And it's just amazing but he's one of those guys who, he'll use the technology up to a point, but when it comes to printing a label off and having your postman pick it up, that's like, I guess, I don't know, way beyond what he wants to do.
That's interesting.
So we talked about how we think one barrier is just the technology, and we won't name ages, but you're a baby boomer. Why do you think you've been able to keep up with the changing of eBay and, web services and all that?
I think unlike a lot of my friends, I do have some friends who are like me, and we sort of embraced the technology when it came along. And I always felt from the beginning that if you didn't get on board, you were going to be left standing at the station. You weren't going to be able to bank. You weren't going to be able to do anything. I love it. There are definitely negatives to the technology, but you just really have to keep up or you get left behind. And
you always, I remember getting that Apple IIe, when I was like 11 years old from a yard sale. Yeah. And we learned on it together. So ever since then, that has been, you were just like, I need this because I can't do my business without it.
Right. Well, and my kids, I have to give Ryan credit. They help me and they explain things to me, and I do think it takes a certain kind of brain when you're, I'll be 65 this year. We may as well get it out there. Yep. But I think, when you're in your 60s and you've never used it before, it's hard because, especially with eBay now, it's become so multi-layered and so multifaceted. And when I try to teach other people how to do eBay, I have one friend in particular.
Yeah.
I've been trying for a year to teach her how to do just the simplest thing, and part of it is she doesn't know really how to use a computer. So
that's tough.
It's like if you don't know how to upload a photo to your computer, then how am I going to teach you how to do all this other stuff?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then there's the personality that's kind of afraid to click on something because they're afraid they're going to break something. It's
yeah.
I'm like, no, if it's in blue and the little hand comes up, just click on it and it'll show you something else. It's a hidden window. It's hidden. They just think stuff's written in blue because it's fun. I don't know.
So about a year ago, you really kind of went full force into eBay and you closed down your retail store. and you got a new place and you have the basement full of stuff. So maybe just talk about what your store is like now, your eBay store.
Well, I'm really, I'm following your and Ryan's example in that the more you list, the more money you make. And in the old days, the most I ever had listed at any one time was 75 items. Mm-hmm. And it was hard to get 75 items up, given the technology and the dial-up and all the other stuff. But now, because I don't have to be in a retail store, my basement, I have a double basement, so I'm guessing I have over 1,000 square feet of storage.
Nice.
Wow. And, everything's organized, and my goal is just to, in the very near future, get 1,000 items. I have almost 600 items up now. And I'm doing, I have a goal every month, and I'm meeting that goal pretty much every month for gross sales.
Good.
I mean, it's basically a full-time job, salary, whatever.
Yeah, it is. And it's wonderful here because I live in a secure location. So and the post office is about a half a mile away. So I can leave tons of packages out for the postman and not worry that somebody's going to steal them.
Right.
Or my husband can take them over to the post office on his lunch hour.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. It's for us, too. That's one of the benefits of being in a country place is that...
we just put our stuff on the porch. We keep the porch unlocked. Sometimes our house is unlocked. It's just don't say that. Don't say that. But,
Like the old days.
Yeah.
Now, so I think you mentioned something very important. So the big thing about all this, the hardest thing is listing. Not the technical aspect, but just getting your butt in gear and doing it, right?
Right. I think for me, I tend to be I'll say a little, but I'm sure other people would say a lot, ADD.
Yeah.
So I'm doing 4 or 5 things at once all the time. And for me, when you're listing, all you can do is list.
Right.
I would much rather be taking photographs, packing stuff for shipping, shopping. I would rather do anything that took physical activity than sitting in front of the computer and listing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I put that off. And honestly, I probably have 1,000 photographs of items to list.
Yeah, we have a lot. I think that's the crux of it all for most people is that it's a bottleneck because you really have to sit down and do the research on some items or just, data entry. That's basically all it is data entry.
Exactly. And I do use Garage Sale. I have a template with Garage Sale. I just bought an iPad. I'm trying to figure out, and I bought the Garage Sale app for the iPad. And I'm I haven't really sat down and figured out how to list on that app yet. I just haven't had time. But my goal, because Mark and I travel a lot now, is to just take the iPad with me and do my listing from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, I think you're right. I think the thing everyone loves about this process is buying stuff. I think that's the most fun, scavenging.
And making money on it. Those two things,
But it's all the stuff in the middle that I think, we see a lot of people get started and then they just kind of peter out because it's no fun to list.
Well, I think, too, part of the problem is, and I know this happened to me, and this is a little bit of an excuse, but it's the truth. I had a vintage clothing store in addition to my brick and mortar antique, furniture, hard goods store.
So that was all in one building, though.
It was in one building, but it was in 2 separate locations in that building.
Yeah.
So the clothing store, when I closed that, I had to absorb all of that inventory. And a lot of the stuff that I bought for the clothing store was never really destined for eBay. Of course, now it's destined for eBay because otherwise it's going to get redonated. So I probably had to absorb, 500 garments. So I'm in the position of having way more inventory than I would really like to have, ideally. And I've got to, really buckle down now and think about ways to get rid of this.
Now, we'll kind of start wrapping up here because we're at the 20-minute mark. But one last question. Now, you've tried to hire somebody or a couple people to help you. How has that worked out, or what was that process like?
I've never really tried to hire anybody to physically list on eBay, but I had a young woman who worked for me. She was a little bit too young to get a regular job, and she was a daughter of a friend of mine.
Right.
And I hired her to help like steam clothes for photography. She modeled for me for a while, but her biggest job was cleaning and restoring shoes. And she became the absolute maestro of restoring shoes. She just made them look like brand new. She was wonderful. And that was such a help to me because she would go through 30 pairs of shoes in a couple of afternoons, which, as you guys know, is a huge time sink. So I don't have her anymore because she's going away to college. So and she was really unique because she took direction. I never had to tell her twice to do something a certain way. And, just a real self-starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think it takes that kind of person for a business like this. Just, because it is such a particular, every step has such a particular way of doing it,
Well, it's all in the details. I mean, it's so detail-oriented. Every flaw, every measurement, in my opinion, has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And she was very versatile. If I said, here's a pile of, 50 silk scarves, measure all these and put a tag on them for me or whatever, it didn't matter. She didn't care what it was. She just did it, and she did it extremely well.
Yeah, I think this is a topic for a whole other show, but that's something that a bunch of us are trying to figure out is how do you find someone to hire to help you? But it's like you said, there's so many intricacies to it that it's hard to teach someone that it's process without them just saying, well, why don't I just open my own store,
Right, which is fine. I mean, I feel like the more you co-opt them into the process and the more you give them a vested interest, the better job they will do.
So one question that I have for you, do you want to say what your store is?
Yeah, it's Jumble and Clutter, which a friend of mine said, it's all one word, and a friend of mine told her husband what the name of my store was when it was the brick and mortar store. It was that same name, Jumble and Clutter. And he said, why would anybody want to shop there? And she said, well, clearly you're not one of her customers.
Right. There's a demographic. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Shabby chic.
Shabby chic. Hey, wait, well, that's copyrighted. You can't say that.
That's copyrighted, absolutely. I've often thought about trademarking Jumble and Clutter because I think people really relate to it, It's like,
so you are Jumble and Clutter, one word. We can link to you too. We'll link to you on the podcast because everyone's always curious what the stores are. So
cool.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being. You're our first interview.
Oh, really? Cool. Yep. I'm honored. And I should be because I'm your mom.
That's right.
I get priority.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.